Hey class, hope everyone's doing well in their quarantine situation, maintaining social distance. I'm looking forward to all the wonderful TikToks about Pericles' funeral oration. So let's review the Peloponnesian War, the Delian League, which was Athens, versus the Peloponnesian League, which was Sparta. We get our information from Thucydides, who was a historian like Herodotus, and he decided to pick up where Herodotus left off. You'll remember that Herodotus wrote about the Persian War with the Greeks. He was an Athenian. He got banished because he lost a battle at Amphipolis, and he decided to spend the next 20 years figuring out what the Spartan side thought of this war and what happened. The immediate cause of the war was when Athens supported Corcyra against Corinth in 432 BC. Corcyra was not a part of either the Delian League or the Peloponnesian League, but it was close to the Peloponnesus and Sparta, and they got a little bit mad. Corinth also was on the Isthmus of Corinth, which is between Athens and Sparta. Corinth was part of the Peloponnesian League, and they asked Sparta to get ready for war and to fight Athens over this insult. So Thucydides thinks that Corinth was the immediate cause. Sparta sent some delegates to Athens to say, stop messing around in the Peloponnesus. This is our area of control. Pericles was the leader of Athens at the time. Incredible leader, great orator, thinker, politician, incredible man. He urged Athens not to give in because then they wouldn't stop making demands if they gave in for the first demand. So he knew war was coming, and his strategy was to avoid infantry battles with the Spartans and to stay inside the walls and survive the siege while relying on the navy. And it worked for a while. Then the plague broke out in Athens, and Pericles died in the plague a year later. He has a famous speech called Pericles' Funeral Oration, which is recounted by Thucydides, and it's for some of the fallen soldiers of Athens who died in battle. And one question for you guys is, did the Athenians continue to listen to his good advice and strategy for the war after he died? Now here's a link to The Life of Pericles by Plutarch, which is a pretty short read, and I would like you to read that and summarize it. It's very good. Here's an excerpt from Pericles' Funeral Oration. It's an incredibly famous speech about Athens, democracy, and its outlook on life. You can read the whole thing here on the bottom. And I'd like you to. You don't have to memorize it or anything, but please read it. It's one of the great pieces of literature in world history. Pericles' famous quote here, "Those who can think but cannot express what they think place themselves at the level of those who cannot think." So you need to be able to develop expressions of your thought in speech, in writing, in TikToks, etc. Don't be shy. All right. After Pericles died, Cleon came to power. He was a gifted speaker. He had a tannery, which is a leather business, and he made a lot of money out of that. So he wasn't an aristocrat, but he was from the merchant class, and he made a lot of money. Beautiful voice. Aristophanes, who was the comedic playwright, called him a mountain torrent. He wanted a more aggressive policy than Pericles, and was pretty vicious to anyone who tried to leave the Delian League. He wanted to kill all the men of the city of Mytilene and enslave the women and children. Question for you guys, did this happen? If it did, what was the result? If it didn't, why not? And instead of mustering their forces to just defeat Sparta, he thought it would be a good idea to expand the Athenian Empire. So he conquered the city of Pylos, which is in the Peloponnesus, and he tried to take the region of Boeotia, which is north of Attica. And Amphipolis, which was in the Delian League, rebelled at this time. Thucydides was sent as strategos to take it back. He lost, and so he was exiled and was able to write the history of the Peloponnesian Wars. Cleon then led an army to retake Amphipolis, and he died in battle there. His chief rival was Nicias, or Nicias, either way. He was from an aristocratic family. His father had given him a nice inheritance, and he invested that in the silver mines of Mount Laurentium outside of Athens. Made a lot of money through that. He was very popular, and he was a rival to Cleon, and negotiated a brief peace in 422 between the Delian League and the Spartan League. He also was a strategos, and these are some of the battles that he led the Athenian army, and all over the Aegean you can see. The final expedition was to attack Syracuse, which is on Sicily, just to the west of Italy, and the Athenian forces were wiped out. Alcibiades came to power during this time after Cleon's death. He was from one of the best and most ancient Athenian families. He studied under Socrates. Brilliant kid, amazing speaker, good strategist. He had everything. Completely excellent in everything he did. But he's a bit cocky and out of touch with reality. So he had a reputation for being sacrilegious, and when some of the statues of Hermes were desecrated before the expedition to Syracuse, they blamed him. So if you're the lead general of the whole Athenian army and navy, it's probably not a good idea to make fun of the religious practices of your people. But apparently he did. So he heard he was going to be arrested and taken off of the campaign. So he fled to Sparta, Athens' enemy, and betrayed the Athenians. Then the Spartans didn't like him, so he fled to Persia, hung out with the satrap in eastern Ionia, and then started helping the Athenians again by taking command of some of their naval vessels, and was let back into Athens because he had helped rebuild the Athenian navy and their power in the Aegean and take back the Hellespont, which leads to the Black Sea, which is where Athens got all of its grain from, which is pretty important. When the Spartan armies are destroying your local grain, you need to eat, and so they were able to import grain from the Black Sea. It was his idea to invade Syracuse. This was a total disaster. And there is a famous book called The 15 Decisive Battles of the World, from Marathon to Waterloo. I have a link here. Let's see if And this is a quote from Sir Edward Creasy about this battle. It's towards the end of his chapter on this battle. I mean, Athens is completely wiped out, and they basically struggle on for a couple more years, 10 more years after this, losing battle after battle. Their navy is wiped out, and finally they have to surrender to Sparta. They make a couple comebacks, do pretty well, but eventually they are conquered by Philip of Macedon. So if you guys get a chance, you should try to read that chapter from Creasy. It's Old English, it's pretty complicated, but just to get you an idea of what a massive defeat it was. This over here is the city of Syracuse. You can see it has these two ports on either side. Very important city, and the Athenian navy got blocked in the port, and their infantry was trapped and they were trying to get to water. You see over here, they were trying to get to water, and they were so thirsty they just dove in the water, and the Spartans pounced on them and killed them all. Demosthenes and Nicias, the leaders, were executed afterwards. And here's a battle. This is the campaigns of the war, and you see the last one over here to Syracuse, which is right here. And it wipes out all the empire that the Athenians had gained. Pretty devastating. Now, the next chapter we're going to do is Alexander the Great. So here are some interesting dates from the time of the expedition to Syracuse, complete disaster that it was, to 338 down here. Philip defeats the armies of Athens and Thebes at Chaeronea, and he unites all of Greece under his rule.